Why are books printed in different sizes? This is one of the most asked reader questions that authors get, and I'm a multi-time best-selling author, both indie and traditionally published, so I have seen a lot of the behind the scenes on how books are published, and I have pretty good details on why different books are different sizes. So let me break this down for you a little bit. This is not the only answer, but these are some of the most common ones. Now, we know when it comes to these books, we are going to be talking about YA, middle grades, adult, those kind of books, not children's books, not picture books. Those are all wildly different sizes. And within the publishing space, there are some standard size books. There's usually about 2 or 3 standard sizes, and then there are some additional sizes as well. We see these leaned into heavily because they're the most cost effective. Now, for most books, they are going to be printed in a way that is for marketing purposes and, more importantly, for cost effectiveness. Because the more material you are printing, the more it's going to cost. So that base cost that the printer is going to be charging the person who is producing that book is going to be greater if the book is bigger. Now, when it comes to printing novels, if it's an indie book, meaning it is self-published, that author gets to make the choice. If it's a traditionally published book, the publisher is going to make the choice. So whoever the copyright holder is makes the final decision on what size it's going to be. And they tend to look at 2 main factors: how it's going to be marketed, so how it's going to look on bookshelves, how it's going to look at different events. The sizing and the way that it is designed is going to be for marketing purposes. It's also going to be for cost effectiveness because, like I said, the bigger the book, the more it's going to cost. So if you take a book that has a bigger text, that's going to then mean less words per page, and it's going to require more pages. If you have a book that is like 5 by 8, that is going to have less words on the page and needs more pages. If you have a 6 by 9 book, that means more words on the page and less pages. So you're doing math here. You just have to pick what's going to be the best choice for you. Now, typically when we see these books being published out in the world, we are going to go with a standard or traditional size, and we're going to change the font size to match what we need. If we are producing a book and it's going to cost, let's say, we're going to do easy math here. Let's say it costs $10 to produce that book, then the author or the publisher is going to have to tack on an additional price to make a profit, an additional $2 or $3. Most books, you're only getting $1 to $3 profit. If it's a traditionally published book, they're making significantly more. But in the indie space, you only usually get $1 to maybe $3 profit on any given book that's being printed because so much of it has to go to the printing costs. And so they are looking to see what is the base cost and what are people going to be willing to spend on this book. If you have to pay $20 to get a book published, and in a lot of cases, you could very well be paying very high amounts for hardcover books, it would then mean that you have to charge like $30 for a hardcover book in the indie space. So we have to look at these things and we have to use those as determining factors for how much print space we want that book to be in. A lot of us will shrink our text down to be a little bit smaller. If I'm creating something like an omnibus, I am going to shrink that text down to fit it all in one book. Sometimes there are page numbers, and you cannot go over a certain amount of pages, hundreds of pages. You can see with my omnibuses here, those are a lot of pages because I crammed 3 full novels and 2 novellas into one book. So the text had to be small to fit it on the pages to make sure I could be within that page count. So when I am deciding what I'm going to be doing for my books, I am taking into consideration what size do I need this to be, what cost-effective way can I do this so that my fans don't have to pay a ton of money, but I can still make $1 or $2 off of my books, what is going to look good on shelves, what is going to be a common page size, and what is going to be the most effective for my entire collection. So for me as an author, when I'm printing my books, my indie books, I am picking the same size. All of my books are the same size. My hardcovers and my paperbacks are always the same size. But then you also have to take into consideration there is a size difference between hardcovers and paperbacks. Even though they are listed at the same size, there's going to be a height variation because when you are printing these books and you're picking the size, it is the size of the page, not the size of the cover. We know with hardcovers, they always have a gap around those pages. So the hardcover, that hard part of the book, is significantly bigger than the pages, whereas a paperback book has the cover the same size as the page. So if I'm doing something like a 6 by 9 book, I am printing that 6x9 paperback, but I'm also printing a 6x9 hardcover, and those are not going to be the same size because the hard laminate case is going to be bigger than the pages on the inside. So you're going to see that height difference between hardcover and paperback across the board no matter what, because that's simply the nature of how these things are made, even though the interior pages are the exact same size. So there's a lot of variations here, and of course you are going to see slight differences between printers. So if I work with one printer and then I work with a different printer, they will be different. I take the exact same books, the exact same manuscripts, the exact same book cover layouts, all of the same things, but if I print one from Ingram Spark and one from KDP, they're slightly different. They are slightly different, not only in the paper that they use and the inks that they use and the way the covers feel, but the sizing is slightly different. The exact same numbers, the exact same specifications, the exact same files are being sent in, but they're being cut a little bit different. It is going to be a little bit different from place to place to place, and sometimes you're even going to see some variations within the same printers. Not huge variations, but the cover might be slightly offset. We might have the words starting in a slightly different place just because the printer moved a little bit. It adjusted itself just a tiny bit, and now it's going to look a little bit different. So there will always be some variations. But if you're seeing drastic variations, like in the middle of a series or they're like changing things, that is probably on the publisher. Sometimes right in the middle, they move things around and they change things, and then they make it really difficult to have uniform books on your shelves. And I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that except for beg them to create things that will look aesthetically pleasing on our bookshelves. So when it comes to those books, keep in mind that the authors or the publishers are usually, I will say in the indie space, we're very good about this. The traditional space, not always, but sometimes. We're very good about keeping series uniforms. Now, sometimes authors will do their different series in different sizes. I personally don't like that. I want all of my books easily aligned. So my novellas, my paperbacks, my hardcovers, my full lengths, my short ones, everything is always the same standard size because I like it to be uniform. I want everything nice and even. It makes it easy to stack. It makes it easy to show. And I like that it's part of my branding. I don't want bigger books and smaller books and all of those things. So I keep things uniform, but to each author their own, or to each publisher their own. You will see different books printed from different big name traditional publishers printed in different sizes depending on what they need. Now, additionally, there are some differences because when it comes to traditional publishing, they tend to do runs of books. They'll do the hardcover, they will do the paperback, but then they're also going to do the mass market paperback. And the mass market paperback is wildly different than the normal paperback because they are meant to be smaller. They're meant to be more condensed. They're meant to be a lower quality of paper, of covers, of all of those things. And those are mass market. Those are meant to go to the grocery stores and the airports and the extra things. They are not meant to be as nice because they're meant to be sold more or less in that wholesale type of way so that people are buying higher volumes. They're lower production costs. They're making more money, but that is kind of like the third iteration of those books coming out. So you're going to see variations in those, and they tend to change the interiors and tweak things to make them a little bit different, to make them more profitable for those big companies. So there's a lot of variation in there depending on what version of these prints and what editions of these prints you are going to get. So while there's a lot that goes into this, I am happy to answer your questions. I can ask questions too, but you can answer, yeah. Okay, well, I was doing really good until this point. You can ask your questions down below. I will get them answered, or I'll bring in somebody who knows how to speak a little bit better than me, and we'll get those things answered for you. We've got some really cool guests coming on the show in the not too distant future, so now is the time to drop your questions in the world of publishing. We're leaving you videos every single day here on the channel to help you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most fruitful and profitable author year ever, so that you can have a life while still living your best author life. We'll see you then.